Welcome, everybody. It's your boy, the Versace Stunner, with another episode of VSW. Thank you. We're here now tonight with Wolf.
Woo!
Talking NXT TakeOver Night 2, Thursday night.
Right on Peacock.
Yep, right on the new home of the WWE Network, Peacock. And this is going to be one hell of a night for wrestling.
Absolutely. We got a great card coming towards you. First off will be NXT North American Championship. Johnny Gargano will defend the title against the winner of a Battle Royal Gauntlet match on night one. We obviously won't know who it is. And then we got the most anticipating two matches I've ever seen after this match, which is the NXT Cruiserweight Championship in a ladder match between two champions. One was injured, Santos Escobar versus Jordan Devlin, for basically the undisputed Cruiserweight champ. And we got finally the last two, Adam Cole versus Kyle O'Reilly in an unsanctioned match at NXT TakeOver to officially break up Undisputed Era. And you got, last but not least, the return of the NXT champ, Demon Persona, Finn Balor versus Karrion Kross with Lady Scarlett. I cannot wait for this.
This is going to be, incredible. To me, this night is bigger than WrestleMania itself this year. That main event of Karrion Kross and Finn is just insane. And then, like you said, an unsanctioned match where anything can take place, anything can happen. You got two of the best squaring off. You got all the championships being decided. What a night. What is that first match again you have on that card?
Johnny Gargano defends on whoever wins night one's Elimination Battle Royal Gauntlet match.
That's insane. Okay, like we said, we were talking about in our last podcast, maybe it is, that new guy night.
What?
But what happens if it isn't? What happens if we get the Bruiserweight coming in? And that's the match we see. The Bruiserweight, versus
Vicious and Nasty versus Johnny Wrestling, but we can't really preview this match because we don't obviously know till next week, but let's just talk about the career of Johnny Gargano, shall we?
Yeah, you got Johnny, he's a legend in this. He's been, since he entered the NXT, he's been a fan favorite.'s been hated, fan favorite again, hated.
He's been loved. He's got his gimmick. He's a great wrestler. He's kind of like a hybrid of Daniel Bryan and the Shawn Michaels wrestling style, as he's very good with submissions, and he loves comic books and superheroes, and his wife, Candice LeRae, who wrestles in NXT, is a huge Disney fanatic, and it builds his style and his characters so well.
It does, he can really relate to any one of us, He's just a regular, normal guy in his likes and interests. And I think that's great about him. But his wrestling style is what makes him really stand out. You're right. He's very technically sound. He knows what he's doing when it comes to submission. You don't see that very much in the game anymore. There's not many submission wrestlers.
And he's one of those guys who no one on the internet says a bad thing about whether he's facing. He never puts on a bad match.
No, he doesn't. He is, Johnny Wrestling for a reason. And, whether he walks out retaining that title or he loses it, I'm sure he's going to give us, a 5-star match.
Absolutely. He had memorable feuds with newly released superstar Andrade, Adam Cole, and of course, how can you forget, started his career off in NXT with DIY, teaming with Tommaso Ciampa. And then he's the first ever NXT Triple Crown champion, winning all eligible titles in the U.S. brand, which is the tag titles, the North American title, and the NXT Championship.
And, those two had some tremendous feuds, some of the greatest battles. That's what I really think of when I think of a takeover, is a Tommaso Ciampa, Johnny Gargano feud.
Absolutely. Those were the best matches I've seen in the whole PG eras, Gargano vs. Ciampa. Come on, casuals who claim they missed the Attitude Era and Ruthless Aggression. If you had watched any of these NXTs the past 5 years, you'd be hooked back into wrestling.
Takeovers, like I said, they never disappoint. It is different than watching WWE, main roster stuff. It is more grimy, it's more gritty. These people want it more.
And they have more of an adult persona.
They do. Their personas are definitely more adult. They're geared towards more us, and the age demographic. And it's just, in my opinion, it's a little bit better wrestling, too.
I'll admit, I am a little turned off. The problem with NXT, we didn't discuss this on the Night 1 podcast. It's not that it's bad by any means. It's just they're overexposed right now. They should be its own brand. They shouldn't be overshadowed by Raw and SmackDown. They shouldn't be thrown into the wolves against AEW.
No, they should have never been thrown to the wolves as AEW. It was unnecessary. Well, yes, they're both the same kind of style, caliber show. It was a ballsy move for WWE to put it up against it. It's fared well. It's won a few times. It doesn't win often, though, in the ratings. But, you got to remember, NXT came from just, nothing, basically. It was a 1-hour show on the network only. Couple of, quick matches to showcase the talent. And then, you had your takeovers to wait for. And the takeovers were different. They were before big major pay-per-views.
Oh, which I love.
Saturday night, it had that UFC fight feeling to it. A little bit more adult-orientated.
And I love the old-fashioned way, the 1 hour a week, watch anytime you have.
Catch it up. You got all week to catch it. It wasn't a must-see thing. Now it's kind of like Raw or SmackDown, where you got to see what's going on. If you don't miss it a couple of weeks, you miss the whole storylines, and you don't even know who half of the characters are anymore. So it is kind of gotten a little bit, just one more thing of a chore if you got to watch wrestling to cover it. It's one more thing you got to really pay attention to, where before you could kind of just watch the matches, enjoy the talent and what they were doing and how good they were doing and the new people that were coming in. And now it's a little bit different. Now it's more, like you said, mainstream. It is being put up in the same category as Raw and SmackDown, which has been around for, 20, 30 years, 40 years.
Absolutely.
They've been around a long time.
And the thing is, and I honestly think it's that Johnny Gargano's going to drop the title to whoever wins that Gauntlet Battle Royal, because I think they're going to move him and Ciampa up eventually. Maybe not Ciampa, but what else does he have to accomplish in NXT, Johnny Gargano?
The only thing I can see him taking is the England title to really become all four.
Very true, but
Gargano,
Ciampa for the England title makes no sense to me. So,
but it could happen. We could see one more title beef between those two if Gargano was to pull it off against Walter, and if Ciampa was to pull it off against Walter and Gargano was to, face him. It might be something interesting, but it's kind of like you said, a far reach. I think these two do need to eventually move on to the main roster. I don't know what their future holds for them there. Hopefully it's something bright and they don't get lost in the shuffle like other wrestlers like Ricochet and other people like Aleister Black that would dominate NXT but are nowhere to be found when it comes to the main.
I honestly think they should have Gargano go to SmackDown, put on good matches, even that dream match with Daniel Bryan.
So, and that is something I can stand behind, And take Ciampa and, make him that monster heel that he is. Throw him to Monday Night Raw. And let him face some people, Let him cause some destruction. Let him cause some chaos.
Let him win the U.S. title and be obsessed with it like he was with Goldie. Bring some relevance into the U.S. title.
That definitely needs some relevance right now. All the titles need relevance, really.
But the NXT titles don't.
That's the only ones that don't. They make them relevant. These people defend them with, to make them relevant. And they put such high prestige on them that you feel like, it's the world title of 1993 or 94 with the big gold eagle belt. I don't feel that way about, the WWE branded titles. They're just kind of like
They're more like props.
Yeah, they're props of coming down the ring. There's no prestige. What is the next match we got up on this one tonight?
The next match is a title versus title match, kind of similar to John Cena versus CM Punk or Shawn Michaels versus Razor Ramon, which we'll get into in a little bit. The title versus title match, a ladder match for the former champion and the current champion, Santos Escobar versus Jordan Devlin. And it's hard to say who's going to win that match.
And they're both champions, you say?
Yes, they are.
What are they? They both current champions?
Yeah, one was injured for.
So they had to pull the title from him.
Yes, they did.
So will this be like a unification match?
Yeah, it basically is. Let's put it to you this way: last week on NXT Takeover, they were given a huge promo, right? And out of nowhere, the Heartbreak Kid comes out with his sexy boy entrance music. He was silent, didn't say a word, which is unlike Shawn Michaels, and he put a ladder into the ring. Doesn't it give you vibes of that Shawn Michaels Razor Ramon feud in WrestleMania 10?
That's what I'm talking about. HBK knows, Mr. WrestleMania knows what to bring, and that's exactly what I think this match is going to need.
People don't realize it's not just Triple H that runs it. Shawn Michaels basically runs NXT with him.
You got to remember, Shawn Michaels has been in this company business a long time. Before, the HBK was born, he was a rocker. He was a tag team champion. He was running around phasing, he was sharing locker rooms with Hulk Hogan and Andre the Giant and all of them. Then he went into the next generation. He was sharing locker rooms with, all those stars. And into the Attitude Era continuing, sharing it with Stone Cold and The Rock. He's one of those guys, similar to The Undertaker, that has been in the locker room with them all. And he has a lot of knowledge and a lot of stuff to bring to the sport. And he's continuing to do so with NXT. Him and Triple H really put on a show for us every week. Regardless if you like it or not, regardless if you think it's not as good as AEW or if one match is bad or whatnot, they put on a good show.
Absolutely. And about Jordan Devlin, he's formerly in the NXT UK brand, and he was affected by the obvious travel bans amid the pandemic, which he beat Drake Maverick to become the interim Cruiserweight champion, and Santos Escobar returned from an injury. He brings this Lucha Libre, Lucha Underground type style to NXT, and the Cruiserweight's been relevant since they put more of an emphasis with 205 Live with NXT as opposed to the main roster.
Yeah.
And who would ever thought Shawn Michaels would have a big impact in the Cruiserweight division? When you think of Cruiserweight in WCW, the Ruthless Aggression era, you would think Rey Mysterio, Chavo Guerrero, Tajiri, all of them.
Yeah, that is very true. But you got to remember, back in the old days, there was that division didn't exist. If you weren't a heavyweight wrestler, then guess what? You fought for the IC belt. Regardless, I think at one point the lightest one coming in was the 1-2-3 Kid. Not until they made the European title did they start to use, the lighter weight wrestlers a lot. Now, fast forward 20 years, things are a lot different. The divisions have changed. The heavyweight division isn't really there. Everybody's an athlete. Everybody's a lot lighter, smaller, more agile, but they're also more healthier.
Absolutely, especially these Cruiserweights. But I think Santos is going to take the ladder match just because they'll want a babyface to really carry the Cruiserweight brand on in the future of NXT, because they really want to make it relevant. When they brought the Cruiserweight title back a few years ago, it was horrible way. They did it after a live taping of SmackDown, which no one wanted to stay for. And it really made the 205 brand look bad ever since.
That's the thing with the 205. I like 205. There's some great superstars. You got August Gray on there,
Or even maybe Top newly signed Christian Casanova.
He might be on there. You know, we did see him on NXT as well in the background there.
He recently dropped the title to Daniel Garcia in Limitless.
You know, so you got all these guys. I would like to see, 205 not be part of this whole Friday night after SmackDown thing. Let's get 205 its own 1 hour slot on, can't even say the network. Let's put it on the Peacock network for 1 hour, at a normal time. I hate to say it because there's a lot of indie wrestling, but 205 can be on a Thursday night, on the Peacock special.
It could be on a Friday or Saturday at midnight.
They should make 205 like the old NXT with the 1 hour time slot. Watch it whenever you want on the network.
Have them advertise during Raw, SmackDown, get people into them.
I mean, you can't watch 205 on cable TV anyways, can you?
No.
No, so you still need the network. So why put it so late, 11 o'clock on Friday, after people have just watched 2 hours of wrestling? They don't want to go back. You've seen this hype main event, and now you're going back and seeing,
Problem with the
undercard.
Cruiserweight in the past, which makes it not taken seriously because of their side, they try to make them so kiddie because they were following SmackDown.
Well, yeah. I mean, and then you also had, just cruiserweights that couldn't be taken serious in general. Like Kung Fu Naki.
SmackDown #1 announcer.
And all these other people when they first started coming in the lighter divisions, they were treated very not too good.
Not at all. And you used to have Tajiri go around spit mist on other people, and you had Scotty 2 Hotty just whirring around in there.
Exactly. And then fast forward to even now. I mean, what happened to all the 205? That they had, and all these people. You have the Lucha House Party. Where are they now? You have the other guy with this little train coming out. Where's he now? All those people that, Cassius Ono, where's he now?
Absolutely. And you also had, who really made it relevant until he wouldn't have it defended against main roster talent, is now known as PAC in AEW, Adrian Neville.
See, that's what I'm saying. These people have taken guys that have been misused and they're making them into stars. And they were stars before, they're just underused. Look at, I hate to say it, but I mean, even Corbin, he had a better gimmick when he was before. When he first entered WWE.
He is so bad as a heel now, Baron Corbin. He's one of the worst gimmicks in all of wrestling right now.
But
he was awesome in NXT, beating people up.
Exactly. I mean, the King, let's face it, the King heel doesn't work anymore. It worked in the 80s. It worked in the 90s. It's hard to work right now, especially if they're not going to be consistent with it. If they had a King of the Ring, great.
A guy who retired Kurt Angle should be a main event caliber, but he wrestled in dress clothes with a prominent Constable gimmick.
Exactly.
And he just pinned Angle.
But the thing is if you're going to have a King of the Ring, let's have another tournament. Every year there needs to be a new king.
Not every 5 years.
Not every 5 years. And,
2 years.
The guy's still King Corbin. Back in the day when you were king, you would sometimes have to defend that title. That's why we got King Duggins and King Haku, King
Mabel.
King Mabel won the King of the Ring, but before that, I'm talking prior to King of the Ring, you had other kings. You had King Haku, you had King Duggan, you had King Holly Race. You had these guys. They're not really consistent. They're not consistent with much. They drop the ball with Retribution. They drop in the ball with
the Hurt Business.
The Hurt Business now. Things are just kind of tanking. They get these ideas, they run with them, then they give up on them.
That's a problem with WWE. Before we go to our next match of the NXT Night 2 preview, before Mania, the big problem, they have an opportunity, though, to have all these full-timers shine. And they got to think of the future. They can't just try to get by and just randomly oversaturate matches. Doesn't make me as excited.
Yeah, I get it. You want to bring back a few legends? Cool. You brought back one. Edge. He's great. You want to bring a celebrity into it? Fine.
Bring Bad Bunny.
Bring Bad Bunny. But don't have him overshadowing, major champions and people that have been working this business for years. And, and Edge is fine. Edge is still at the top of his game. he didn't choose to retire. He didn't choose to walk away from this company. He was forced to. So if he can get back into it for a little bit, and it was probably eating him for years of the way he had to leave fans and everything, I'm all for him. But when you got people like Goldberg outshining people that are supposed to be up and coming, that's when I have an issue.
When he
with it.
barely can do the jackhammer.
He can barely do his own match anymore, and you got him, taking the victory over people like Bray Wyatt, who ever since he lost that match to Goldberg has been on the decline. Yeah, he looks pretty great with Alexa Bliss and all of that, but his character as a whole, his popularity as a whole, is all declined since then.
And let's move on to the second to last match of the night. Maybe it main events instead. And the most anticipated unsanctioned match between two former Undisputed Era members, Adam Cole, baby, versus Kyle O'Reilly.
This is going to be a great match. I mean, I was heartbroken when we saw that turn of events that took place, and Adam Cole turned on him.
Beat him up so badly, and he beat him up again when Kyle O'Reilly was coming the next week, but he suffered a seizure.
So you had to feel bad for him. Kyle O'Reilly, one of the original members of Undisputed Era, a real brother to Adam Cole. It's a real turn. But, all good things must come to an end. Eventually, Undisputed Era had to break up. They all do. It was a great way to do it. This is going to be a great matchup, these two specifically. Yeah, Bobby Fish versus Adam Cole would have been good too. But let's face it, Kyle O'Reilly is a little bit more technical, a little bit more,
They got a Gargano versus Ciampa type style. Like the way those matches were, they got high expectations.
And these two though together have good chemistry, both wrestling each other and as a tag. This is going to be a tremendous matchup, back and forth. I think it's going to be a real close call on who wins it.
And how ironic that Adam Cole could be facing an unsanctioned match where his girlfriend, Britt Baker, over in AEW, lost in an unsanctioned match against Thunder Rosa for the first ever women's main event in AEW history.
That is true. I do remember that. And speaking of unsanctioned matches in AEW, that Moxley unsanctioned match, that could be as good as this. This could be as good as that, rather.
I think it will be because they're best friends in real life, too.
And there has to be a reason for it being unsanctioned. I have a feeling there's going to be a different sense of brutality to this.
Absolutely. They could tear up the ring.
I think all the members eventually of Undisputed Era will be involved in this match at some point.
I think Roderick Strong is still torn when it comes to being on Cole's side or O'Reilly's side.
Yep, and Bobby Fish is too, I think.
So
and we could have any kind of turn. Look how, if we want to compare apples to apples.
Maybe they attack both of them during the match. Anything goes.
Look at AEW and look how they, tried to break up the Inner Circle. And look how that all unfolded. It was a double cross, with a whole new faction being introduced. And that's what maybe we see here. Maybe Kyle O'Reilly starts his own with some other wrestlers outside of Undisputed Era. Who knows what we see.
Or maybe the up-and-coming, the new baby Lesnar, Parker Boudreaux. Maybe he comes in after the match and starts a new faction.
Wow, Parker Boudreaux, that's the next big thing in this industry. I can't wait to see what he is going to bring.
I think with him, before we go back to that Cole versus O'Reilly topic, I think if he doesn't appear at all, I'd be shocked and takeover. But I would put him in the Andre the Giant Battle Royal and have him win that to kick off the next big thing's career.
He will. And, I just want to talk about him for a second, too, before we go on. He's one of these guys that is really humble. He knows he's the next big thing. He's very big. He's obviously very muscular.
He is phenomenal to his fans.
That's what I mean. He is great to his fans. He retweets. He
follows
talks to us
fans.
directly.
Thank you so much, Parker.
He's very happy, to be making new friends. He's doing it the right way. He's winning social media the right way. He's building a great following. You know, people are starting to do fan art. People are starting to just fall for this guy.
He hasn't even wrestled on NXT or the main roster
We haven't
yet.
even seen him do any wrestling promos, nothing. He's a football player, you know.
He works out with Eva Marie a lot.
He
Good
does.
for him.
I've seen some of those photos, but we have never seen him in any matches. And, you know, when we do start to see promos, it's going to be great. And it's going to be like, wow, I saw him when he was just, you know, just regular old Parker Boudreaux, you know, trying to become next superstar. And then when he finally posted that he made it in there, you know, I think everybody was happy.
He was a University of Central Florida guard in the Big East, so he has a lot of college football experience. A lot of guys in WWE were great football players.
Look at The Rock.
Look at Baron Corbin and Roman Reigns. They went from college to...
They all did, you know.
The main roster.
They all did. Goldberg, too, didn't he?
Very true.
You know, a lot of them played football, and if they didn't, you know, once they didn't make it to the NFL, or if they did, they jumped in. You know, that was like WrestleMania. You know, one of the WrestleMania that I was covering the other night, they had the Battle Royal with the football players and the wrestlers together.
Lawrence Taylor, right?
No, that was WrestleMania 11. This one was a Battle Royal with, I want to say WrestleMania 2. And it had all the superstars in there, but it had all the football guys in there as well. Really, 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 really fun time from back in the day when football used to be basically, you know, everybody from football moved to wrestling and vice versa. And you're starting to get that again.
Absolutely, but who do you think's going to take it, Cole or O'Reilly?
So many layers to this match, and the storyline is what's going to drive it. You know, they might leave us in a cliffhanger. I'm going to say Adam Cole wins it, because that's going to solidify his heel, and whatever he decides to do with Undisputed Era.
And he really wants to bury it, and I think he's going to the main roster. He's the kind of guy that could be easily Intercontinental Champion, make the main roster relevant.
Easily. I mean, he's already there now.
He already is teasing a match with Shawn Michaels, who is close to him, his wrestling style, too.
That would be something amazing. Maybe not so much today, but if it was like, you know, an older Shawn Michaels, you know, when he was younger in his career versus today's Adam Cole, that would be something to watch.
And it's their opportunity for him to prove that he didn't need Undisputed Era to become as big as he is.
No, he can do it on his own.
Absolutely, but I think he's going to go to the main roster. To be honest with you, he's been overdue for 2 years now to go, but I think he chose not to go because NXT's the place to be in WWE.
It is. I think a lot of these people don't want to go. I don't think Ciampa wants to go. I don't think Gargano wants to go.
I think they would have been called up already.
I don't think any of these people. I don't even think Aleister Black wanted to go.
And look what he's doing. Nothing.
Everybody that moved up when he got moved up, dude, nothing has been let go.
They turned one of the greatest tag teams in all New England, Japan, into jokes. The Viking Raiders, which should have been War Machine War Raiders in NXT, they were phenomenal in NXT.
Oh my God, they had the crowd behind them, and that just went down the tubes. Look at Lars Sullivan. He was pretty good in NXT, and, you know, between his anxieties, his former lifestyles coming out and everything else, he was destroyed on the main roster. Not to mention they had him facing Lucha House Party 7 times in a row. You know, it's kind of disgusting on what could happen to these NXT legends if they go to the main roster and aren't treated right. You just got to have some trust and hope that, you know, some of these guys are going to make it and still be okay.
I think Adam Cole's going to do a lot of last shots, Shining Wizard moves to Kylie O'Reilly. He's going to want to beat the hell out of O'Reilly after all, he decided to break up him in Undisputed Era after his loss to Finn Balor in NXT Vengeance.
Well, yeah, and, you know, I think it's about time that it does break up. They've been together for a while. All these factions are breaking up right now.
Well, I'm okay with that. Of course, a few years ago, I wanted them to invade Raw, SmackDown, but they don't know how to do factions in the main roster anymore in WWE. I hate to say, compared to AEW, where everyone's in a faction basically. It's kind of good and bad at the same time.
But it's also kind of how it was back in the late 90s wrestling when we had these monster factions. We had NWO. You know, you had
DX.
Generation X.
Nation of Domination.
The corporation. The corporate ministry. The ministry.
Even Right to Censor.
Right to Censor later on. You had all this. You had Evolution. You had all these people and all these things that were just great. Now, for many years, we haven't had hardly any factions.
Just the Shield, that's about it.
Yeah, the Shield. And now we're starting to get them back into the wrestling. AEW was probably the first to bring them all in, you know, with Inner Circle, the Elite. You have all these other, you know, Dark Order.
Now the Pinnacle. And the Hardy Money Compound, Matt Hardy's building.
Matt Hardy's, yep. You have his stable as well. But you got to remember, like, early wrestling, you had managers. Managers had stables. Heenan family. Jimmy Hardy managed a bunch of wrestlers. You know, Mr. Fuji had a bunch of wrestlers he wrestled. These were all considered stables. Regardless
That's what the main roster needs is more of NXT guys. Retribution doesn't count because that was Vince's way of trying to talk about the protest without even mentioning it.
Yeah, it was a market. It wasn't even supposed to go more than a couple of weeks. And the fact that they found Ali to play the face, then it became something a little bit more. But still, even then, you know, Ali has been thrown around with nowhere to go for years.
And he's so talented, Ali.
Very talented.
Should have been Cruiserweight champion. He'd be perfect for a U.S. or Intercontinental title. He keeps losing the U.S. title matches. But he could be the opportunity. He wants to be a face for the Muslim American community. And he stays humble. He's good to his fans. Former cop.
I mean, if I was him, I'm sure he's a little bit hesitant too. Vince isn't the best at booking any kind of ethnicity. I mean, look what the last guy they did with the Muslim American. They
Muhammad Hassan could have been one of the greatest heels. He had the heat. It wasn't really the right way to get heat because capitalizing.
But I mean, they capitalized on terrorism. They made him into a bomber. And, I mean, if it wasn't for what happened in England, he probably would have ran with that.
Because he was supposed to beat The Undertaker and then beat Batista at SummerSlam. That would have been amazing.
Exactly. I mean, but he would have ran with that gimmick for a little bit, I think. But, you know, changes had happened. And I'm hopefully Vince has learned how to just book ethnic wrestlers. It doesn't have to be the stereotypical bullshit that we see all the time. Just book people as
Let
they
them
are.
be what
Let
they
them
want to be.
Who they are. You know, just because they're, you know, Japanese American doesn't mean that they, you know, speak Japanese and are this, you know. Just because they're Italian wrestlers doesn't mean they got to put them in that class. You know, Vince is very, very good at just picking people by their nationality, making their gimmick rely around it, and making a joke of the whole thing. You really can't
It's
do
just
that
a problem
anymore.
with the main roster. Before we move on in the main event, NXT 2, we already made our predictions of the unsanctioned match. But what we're trying to say is why is NXT so good, but it's disconnected from the main roster? Some of the biggest problems I noticed, like Versace said, is the fact that there's no real big factions going in the main roster, no big long-term storylines, and guys aren't themselves like they are in NXT. They get toned down too much, like Viking Raiders as an example, and everything, and just tag teams get thrown together.
Exactly. It's just all makeshift tag teams. There's no real tag teams. You know, they did great in NXT, but when they get moved up, it's not so much. Like, again, you know, War Raiders, Street Profits, they were better in NXT.
And before we move on to the night for the final match of it's the main event we've all been looking for. Should have been on the Mania card, would have stole the show. It is not only the NXT Championship between Finn Balor, he's in his demon persona, which I love, versus the return of Karrion Kross and Lady Scarlett, who's been a force to be reckoned with before his injury.
Tick tock. Tick tock.
Fall and pray.
The time is up, you know, and I think the time is up for Finn Balor. This is going to be a very, very, very personal match. Gotta remember, Karrion Kross was former champion. hell of a match to win, and unfortunately got injured that night and had to vacate it the same night. I felt very bad for him.
I think he would have still been champion
he would have
right
been,
now.
but he made a tremendous recovery in a very short amount of time. Very fast, and he's ready to prove himself again as champion and have the reign that he was supposed to have. His time is now. Whatever happens with, Finn, whether he stays in NXT.
And I don't think him as the Demon has ever lost a match in WWE.
No, it hasn't. And that's what could make this very interesting. I don't know if he stays in NXT after, if he goes back to the main roster. The main roster didn't really treat him right.
But I think he fits so much better in NXT, and he probably doesn't want to go back.
Prince Devitt kind of format, he does. And, I think he kind of runs the show there. He's with former friends.
In the main roster, he was good. He was the inaugural Universal Champion. He got injured. Then he became a multi-time Intercontinental Champion.
Then they did him wrong. He was still with the pounds and pounds of baby oil on him coming out.
And he was toned down way too much. They
toned him down. They only brought the Demon out, once in a while.
And he became like a jokester Englishman. Or Irishman.
If you ever watched his New Japan wrestling style, it was intense. And if that's what we see, Thursday night, this is going to be a war. Karrion Kross is, he is the best of the best right now, in my opinion.
He's got a combination of a big man gimmick and a supernatural gimmick. He's the kind of guy I wish Undertaker could face besides The Fiend before he retired. I think he could carry on the match. I would love to see him versus Kane.
Oh, he reminds me of Kane. He could just, that when you see the Inferno and the Flames, it reminds me of Kane. And I think, Karrion Kross is, he was great on the indie scene prior as Killer Kross. And when they brought him in, to WWE, I think a few people were a little iffy how he would do. But he destroyed it.
Absolutely. Him and his real-life girlfriend, Scarlett, great-looking couple. She's got the look for the female division. She's very good as a manager. Very good as
They're very popular. Even as a heel face, doesn't matter. They're a very popular couple in the wrestling world. And they always put on a match. And I think this is going to be no exception. So you got two of the top talents really taking...
I think they're going to make each other bleed.
Really taking it over. This will be the takeover match of the night. Of both nights. And probably even, maybe even one of the nights of Mania. This might be the better night match.
You dreamed about this for a while. Finn as his Demon persona against no other than Karrion Kross.
Exactly. And there's not one other person on the roster that I could think that I'd want to see the Demon face. Besides maybe... coming back to face the Fiend as the Demon. We saw regular Finn get destroyed by the Fiend. We never really saw what happened after that. We saw him return as Prince Devitt down to NXT. Now we see the Demon come back. Maybe we do eventually see the Demon versus the Fiend later on. But like I said, this WrestleMania caliber style match is going to main event Thursday night.
And you do not want to miss this, folks.
Oh, no, I can't wait for this one. I'm sitting on the edge of my seat now just waiting for it.
Next week on Wednesday and Thursday. But before we wrap up for the night, who do you think's going to take it between Kross and Balor?
I think Karrion Kross is going to defeat that streak. I think Karrion Kross is going to take what's rightfully his, and I think him and Scarlett are going to, further prove themselves as NXT champions, and their legacy is about to begin.
I honestly think that you may be shocked that I say this, but because Vince is so high on him before he got injured, I think Demon Finn gets undefeated in what's going to be a war of a match. Then Kross either does a face turn or he goes into the main roster after Mania, I think. Because they really need someone as charismatic as him and Scarlett on Raw. He could rejuvenate Raw.
He could. He definitely could, as things start to wrap up with the Fiend and Orton's, matches. I think you're going to need some new talent to kind of pick up the pace on Raw. I could see that happening.
Absolutely, but this is our finale. Any last words about NXT before we move on to our announcements?
No, I mean, I think, we're just going to have to really tune into both nights, see what's in store, see what they have planned for us, really trust the plan. And I think they're going to deliver. Like I said, I've never watched a bad takeover. I don't think this will be any different. It might be on different days and a weird kind of format. I still think it's going to come out hard and strong and really just impress all of us.
That's what I think. I think night one's going to surprise a lot. It'll be good, but it's not meant to be as good as night two because they got AEW on Wednesdays. But speaking of, NXT is rumored to go to Tuesdays because NBC might retrain second half of the NHL deal for next year when they get rid of NBCSN. So that's a win-win for wrestling fans if we could watch NXT and AEW in different nights. I'll admit I struggled recapping night one because I don't know NXT like I did a few years ago before AEW's existence. I need to be watching more, and I will be after TakeOver.
It's hard when trying to cover multiple wrestling promotions at the same time slot. And, you got to watch both, and they both have different talent, and the talent keeps changing and evolving. But we will get better at doing that is for sure.
I promise you, within the next year, all our podcasts will become not miss, and less of shooting the shit, and more of, being able to know more movesets. I'll admit, I'm getting the hang of it now, and we'll keep getting better and better, starting with NXT TakeOver. We're going to have a kick-ass recap, and before we sign off, we got a big week for us as we got the return of Denver, Colorado, and Beyond Wrestling live at the Winged Eagle in Worcester. And the first time in over a year, Disabled and Versace will finally be attending wrestling again.
Can you believe it? Can you believe it? Not since BC Dub in the last Evolve show as we've been out to a pro wrestling show. Finally coming back to Massachusetts. I know he was running some stuff in Jersey during the pandemic and doing some tape shows. We will be there live covering that. We will also be covering in that podcast later that night, recapping the return of NCW Wrestling Behind Closed Doors tape show, and that will be shown at 7 o'clock p.m. on their YouTube channel. So if you haven't done so already, go there, type it in NCW Wrestling, hit subscribe, hit the notification button. This way you can be notified when they are about to air their episode. That's at 7. Then on IWTV at 9 o'clock. You're going to see, that's the time of our pay-per-view, right?
Yes, we do. Right after the season finale
9 o'clock,
of the
you're going to see the
series.
return. Oh, yes, the Signature Series finale will be on. And then right after that will be live wrestling. And we really can't wait for that. We'll be covering that right after. We will be doing a podcast live on the way home from that show, recapping all the action. Then you'll be able to follow us on Twitter, Versace Stoner 9 and Disabled Wolf. Catch all the photos and interactions that we had during this event.
And next week is Mania Week, and there's finally fans back as we recap. We're going to preview night 1 and night 2 next Monday, like we are right now, with our friend Michael Panchu reading the match card and asking us some questions. And on Tuesday, we're going to have a special IWC shooting the shit, and we'll give users a chance to shine, call in, ask about the current card, what's going to steal the show, or any past Manias, legends, and matches.
Talk Mania dream matches. We'll talk WrestleMania.
We'll recap your childhood, have some fun.
Tell me what Mania you started watching at. That's what I want to hear. We'll have people calling in, asking questions. It'll be fully interactive. This is going to be an extravaganza. We can't wait to start it off. This will all be kicking off. Our next podcast for this will be Thursday. You can also catch me, though. I will be continuing to recap all the old Manias. We have so far done up to 9. 10 will be up next, probably within the next few days. And you can relive all the excitement of the past WrestleManias as we get ready for WrestleMania 37.
With fans, baby.
With fans, and it's back. So I thank you, everybody, for listening tonight to this NXT takeover preview. It's been great. I'm your host of Versace Stoner.
We are disabled. We are VSW. Signing off.
Versace out.